This is the Initiates Podcast. I am your host and guide, Natalie Grace. Join me every week for an enlightening exploration of spirituality, mysticism, and awakening. It's my honour to journey with you. Hello, beautiful soul. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to be sharing some messages that I've been receiving over the past week or so. Messages from the universe, messages that have prompted a lot of deep questioning and self-exploration. Messages from the 3D realm, actually. Messages from animal spirits, messages from plants, messages from my own body. And the exploration I've gone on has been quite challenging, thought-provoking, expansive, but really useful, I think. And that's why I want to share it with you guys today, because where this questioning has brought me to is this invitation from the 3D realm to ground into the earth. And grounding is something you hear a lot in spirituality. It goes hand in hand with embodiment and integration, and it's something that we're told that we should do and prioritise to keep ourselves well and healthy and to keep our energy flowing. And all of that is definitely true. But the invitation to ground that I've received this week has been much more deep for me. This is probably because I'm not a naturally grounded person. I might seem grounded, but I'm quite airy, and so much of my waking life is spent pondering things, exploring ideas, sort of stuck in my intellectual self, in the thought realm, in the mental energy body. So much of my focus is placed there that it's often to the detriment of my physicality, of my physical self. And so this grounding into the earth, this invitation from the earth and the broader universe to ground in a more deep way, is all about honouring our physical selves, physical aspects of selves, which is something that we're so quick to dismiss in spirituality. And embracing and honouring this 3D experience, which is ultimately why we're all here. We might have bigger missions, more cosmic missions. We might have celestial lineage. However, this soul contract that's brought us here to be incarnated in a physical body, sharing energy together right now. The intention of that soul contract, why that's happening here, is because we are here to live in physical bodies, in 3D form, to live and experience the 3D. And so this message of grounding into the earth, this beautiful invitation, really comes down to, for me, reawakening or establishing a will to embrace and honour my own 3D experience. So that's what I'm going to be exploring today. Let's journey. The earth has been talking to me this week. I've had some really profound moments in nature connecting with the spirit of the natural world. For those in the Telegram group, they would have heard me recount a really amazing experience where I came face to face with a powerful owl. That's the largest owl that we have at least in southern Australia, but I think in the whole of Australia perhaps. That was a really cool experience that I'm going to be sharing a bit later in the episode. I have had some amazing experience with plants where there's been an almost two-way communication happening, invitation to work in new ways with specific plants in my garden, and just a reconnection with the symbiotic relationship of the plants in my garden after a period of disconnection, I want to say. I've also been given some really profound insights from my body, from my physical self, that's helped me understand more about the interplay between the intellect and our physicality. All of these I'm going to be expanding on in a little bit, but I just wanted to give you a taste of what's been happening this week. And I wonder if any of you have been connecting with the natural world a bit more lately, in a bit more of an obvious and literal way. I wonder, has the earth been sending you any messages like this? I've taken all of these messages on board as an invitation to ground into my physicality, to ground into my earthliness, my humanness, my animal nature, all in order to honor the 3D. And the reason that it's been about connecting with and honoring our third dimensional nature, our 3D reality, our material reality, is because as I've received these messages, I've started to understand that I have a disconnection, that there is a disconnect, that I am increasingly disconnecting from my own physical reality, from my physicality. And I'm seeing this on my own individual level, but also in the collective, reflecting on what I have been immersing myself in over the past few years, I want to say, and what others in the spheres that I inhabit are immersing themselves in. And in these collective spheres, I'm realizing that our heads are constantly in the clouds. When I was trying to understand and perceive this in my own mental space, I was seeing the symbols of the clouds in the tarot. The Knight of Swords, for instance, there's often these swords characters, which is the symbol for air, the symbol for the intellect, the symbol for the mind, the mental realm, the realm of perception. Those characters often have their heads surrounded by clouds, and this is a preoccupation perhaps with the thought realm, with the intellect, with the mental sphere. And I feel like that's where I've been for a little while, and I'm not sure how that resonates. I think I've been quite ungrounded, and I feel like that experience might be common with others listening. So in my personal experience, I've been doing so much expansion of my knowledge, the opening of the mind to take in new ideas, new beliefs, to seek new forms of wisdom from an intellectual level. And that has led me to take in a lot of other people's thoughts, ideas, words, even beliefs. I'm listening to a lot of teachers and other guides share their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own concepts, their own perceptions about what it is to exist in this interdimensional reality. And so much of it is exciting and beautiful and activating and inspiring. But I've come to realize how much of my time I spend in the thought space recently because I've been confronted with the effects it's been having on my health. Transiting through, I want to say, a period of, it's not quite burnout, because I think burnout, again, it's just conceptual. I want to describe the physical reality of what I'm experiencing at the moment in just a very practical way. I'm experiencing tiredness. I'm experiencing fatigue in my physical body, in my muscles. I'm experiencing weakness in my structure. Of course, a lot of that has to do with a state of health that I manage, to do with my thyroid and autoimmunity, which I don't like calling a disease, but it's not just that. I think that's one of the signals that is imprinted in my body to help me understand how I'm out of balance. So I would never suggest that the health issues I'm experiencing right now around exhaustion, around tiredness, around fatigue, around lacking the energy to get usual stuff done is all about my thyroid. The thyroid is simply the messenger. And when I think about why is this happening again? Why am I so tired? There's some really obvious answers, and they're again 3D messages. I am not getting good sleep at the moment at all, and I'm not feeling rested. I've let my diet slip a little bit, so I'm not eating as well as I had been previously. And most of all, I've come to realize I'm allowing myself to become lost and unfocused because I'm giving so much of my mental space to other people's thoughts and ideas. So this has been an interesting revelation for me. And funnily enough, it's come from reflecting with my thoughts about what it is that I'm focusing on and prioritizing in my life right now. But it's been a really good discovery because with my focused awareness on this issue that I've come to understand more deeply, that I am allowing too much outside thought to come into my thought realm, into my mental energy body. I am more aware of both what I'm neglecting when I give up so much of my time and mental energy to other people's ideas. But also, I'm given the opportunity to discern what parts of that information I want to keep and carry with me, and what information it might be time to let go of or release to make space for new and different ideas, or simply just space that won't be occupied by anything at all. But it's also contributing to me feeling overwhelmed with thought, confused. I want to say muddled. It feels murky if I tune into this mental energy space of my body. It feels murky and cluttered, and this is really impacting me and my ability to focus and my ability to be present in the now. It also affects my ability to be able to easily discern what is my thought or belief and what belongs to someone else or the collective. So while all this thought-provoking content is usually really important to me, I've actually had to come to the decision to build a much firmer, I want to say, awareness of what it is I'm consuming, how much time I'm spending consuming, and what I'm neglecting when I prioritize consuming other people's thoughts and ideas, whether that's through books, podcasts, TV, whatever it might be, films, documentaries. And I completely understand the irony or even hypocrisy of me talking about this while I'm literally creating a podcast, sharing my thoughts for other people to listen to. But it's all about having a conscious awareness and a conscious attitude to consumption, I want to say. being aware of the effect it has, especially when it starts to build up. So there is a really big chunk of time where I reside within my thought space. And the fact that I'm so focused on my thoughts and ideas and pondering things, and the main impact that's had on me is depleting my physical energy stores. I spoke about this on a much earlier episode, The Density of Thought, where I shared about what happens when we allow too many outside thoughts to creep in and take over our minds, that it creates actual physical weight that starts to impact our body, that our heads get so heavy that it starts to literally give us a sore neck. So if that sounds interesting, go check out that episode. But it goes beyond just making us feel weighed down in a literal sense. It's also what causes a drain of energy. And the more nefarious the external sources of these outer thoughts are, the bigger the drain on our energy. So something we do need to understand about the thought realm is that it's the main channel for, if we want to call it the matrix, this system that we're all trying to learn how to escape. The thought realm is it's the best method of draining our life force, of draining our vitality. I've got a lot of theories about why this is, but I think I'll save them for another episode. All we need to know is that, and it's pretty obvious if you just think about the media, what is projected onto us, that the more time we spend thinking about those projections, the less time we have to think about creativity and making things and doing things and coming up with our own ideas and perceiving the world in our own unique way. And when I wrote that down, some words flowed out that I wanted to share with you about this drain to our vitality. Fill our minds with thoughts and we struggle to find peace, to find clarity, to witness reality in the present. Fill our mind with thoughts and we speak other people's spells, mindlessly parroting the ideas of others without integrating the message. Fill our minds with thoughts and we disconnect with physical reality. And I think that's what the key realization for me has been, that the more time I spend not just in the thought realm, but prioritizing not just intellectual pursuits, but like just sitting solely in the intellectual space, as opposed to being outside or being creative. The more time we spend conceptualizing our reality, philosophizing our reality, analyzing our reality, the less we get to experience and witness our actual reality. So when we think of that kind of mental infiltration by the system, or whatever we want to call it, our minds usually take us to mainstream media. We think of news narratives. We think of really shitty reality TV, stuff that's designed to create intense kind of brain worms, messages that stay stuck in the mind repeating over and over and over, and that make you feel compelled to talk about them to other people. They can even create emotional reactions in us. I know when I was younger, I would get caught up in TV series that had really intense emotional impact on me. I learned very quickly the power of television programming to elicit fake stories, to elicit real emotions in us. And I became pretty strict with myself around what I would consume after feeling bad about myself based on a fictional TV show. It's really powerful stuff. But it's not just media that creates these thoughts. These thoughts come from everywhere, and they don't always need to be negative. They can be really positive too, but we become almost addicted or compelled to consume more. So that's very obviously served up to us using social media, where we've been manipulated to become addicted to this endless scroll, this constant checking for new information. But what is the information if we're consciously avoiding mainstream media and mainstream news? We're consciously consuming more spiritual kind of content. It can be alternative history. It can be conspiracy theory. It can be politics. It can be philosophy. It's Gaia TV even, and it's podcasts, this one included. They all have the potential to become addictive, I want to say. And so if we're over consuming any of this content, it could be Buddhist teachings. If we're over consuming this content and gaining this addictive kind of compulsion to be receiving it as often as we possibly can, we have the potential to lose ourselves in it and lose the distinction between what is ours and what's true to us and what is someone else's or what belongs to the collective. Or even more dangerously, what has been placed there for us to receive that isn't true at all. And when these narratives may be telling us that the earth that we inhabit is a place that we need to escape from, that we all come from somewhere else, that the whole point of our incarnation is to ascend beyond it, I'm starting to think that that can be a little bit problematic, potentially even dangerous for some people if they're on a stage of their journey where they haven't developed their discernment. I'll pause that thought there because I want to dive more deeply into this ascension messaging in part 2 of Grounding into 3D. In this episode, I really want to focus more on what happens when you reprioritize living in the present moment in nature and the beautiful, magical communication that starts to happen in the present with Gaia's creatures. That communication that we're neglecting so often when we're in our thought bubbles, philosophizing everything. I think that's why the 3D has been calling me back in, because it wants to help me heal. It wants to help me balance. It wants to remind me of the things that I am deprioritizing in my physical space, in my physical reality, in favor of consuming words and ideas and images that come from a space outside of my physical reality. Let's talk more about some of those beautiful connective experiences that I've been having in nature in the past week. The first is the meeting with the owl, the powerful owl. This was loaded with so much meaning for me. It felt like for most people, would probably be a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity to literally come face to face with an owl at my own head height. But I felt like it was the first of what could be many experiences of connecting with the owl and other nocturnal creatures, I want to say. And so I've taken you all on the journey recently about how I have been able to neutralize my fear of the dark, which has been super important for me because I live on a farm and there's times when I'm needing to go out onto the land in the dark, and it's way easier to do that when I'm not freaked out or scared. So this particular night, it was within the last week, I was heading over to the cabin to get something, and it was actually a really interesting decision. So I'm always cold and I carry around a hot water bottle, even though the summer's just finished here in Australia. Almost every night I've needed a hot water bottle. It hasn't been particularly warm here this summer. So I realized that I'd left it in the cabin, sleeping there another night this week. So I was toing and froing because it was like 11:30 and I was really tired. I was exhausted and I wanted to go to bed, but I knew I'd be cold and it would be hard to sleep. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, I could just go to bed now and be unhappy, or I could honor my desire to be so cozy and snug. It just would require me to walk to the cabin. But then I could just come back and jump straight into bed, get ready and jump straight into bed. And normally with this level of exhaustion and fatigue that I described earlier, I would just be like, no, I'll just unhappily go to bed. I won't have what I want and I'll be thinking about it. This time though, I decided, no, I'll just go to the cabin, get the hot water bottle and honor what it is I actually desire. I'd really love to feel warm and cozy right now. So that's what I'm going to allow myself to feel. And so I did. And on this walk, I spotted this owl. So I turned the corner on the way to the cabin and I'm walking along a fence line, a fence that borders a paddock. And up ahead from me, over some trees, I see this enormous, what looked like a bat fly off. We have some really big bats in Australia. Where I live, we have mega bats. They're huge. And it is quite common to see them at night. And so I saw this giant creature flying off over the trees. And my immediate reaction was, it's a bat, except it was white. And I'm like, hang on. We don't have white bats. What is that? And I just assumed that I must have been seeing something, that the light was reflecting in a weird way and it was just a bat and it appeared white. And I take a few more steps and I'm walking, at a decent pace. I'm not dawdling, but I'm also realizing that I do not feel anything. I'm not scared, or I'm not even thinking about not being scared. This is just feeling completely natural to me to be walking on the land in the dark. And I felt really happy in that moment because I hadn't really felt that way before. I hadn't felt at home or comfortable on the land in the dark until very recently. And it was a beautiful feeling. And the bat didn't scare me at all. It was this moment of wonder and oh, I'm so glad I caught that. And so I take a few more steps along this fence line, and I feel in the periphery something's there. I don't have the best eyesight, especially at night. And so I stopped and I turned my head to look to the left at this fence post, and I see a creature sitting on the fence post completely still. And I'm like, oh, that's a bird. I'm like, hang on, it's nighttime. Birds don't sit on fence posts at nighttime. And I had my phone in my hand, so I had the torch on. So I raised my torch to have a look at it. And as I was doing that, I was like, oh my goodness, is this an owl? And I shine my torch at it and it doesn't flinch. And it's less than a meter away from me. It's probably about 50 centimeters or something like that. So I'm really close to it. And its head is at my head height. So I'm looking at it. I'm face to face with this owl. And I still wasn't sure if it was an owl because it didn't have big eyes open. It looked like its eyes were closed or looking downwards. So I couldn't really get a good look at its eyes. But I understood what it was. And I put my phone down because I felt so honored to be in its presence that I didn't want to take a photo of it. And I wouldn't have been able to capture it in its glory. And I would hate to have made it fly away just because I had to capture that moment on this, device. I felt so called to just honor being in this owl's presence and honor the wonder of this amazing experience. It was actually such a thrill to see this owl because I'd never seen an owl on the farm before, and I'd never seen an owl that large. And it was beautiful. It was it had a lot of white on it with these spotted dark brown or black kind of looking flecks. And I had my moment with the owl, and then I continued walking. And it sat on this post. I could kind of see it. My eyes had adjusted by the time I got to the cabin. So from the deck of the cabin, I could see this owl remaining on the fence post. And it took a while longer before it decided to fly away in the same direction as the bat I saw, which I then realized, oh shit, that was an owl too. That must have been an owl, because this particular owl has this incredibly large wingspan, and it, like the owl I just saw, it was white. So it must have been its sibling or a mate or a friend. And this was such a cool experience because I immediately understood what the owl was there to tell me. It was telling me, see what happens when you're not afraid and you honor your actual desire, something as simple as wanting to feel warm, knowing you can have that, but it's your choice whether you allow yourself to have that feeling or not. This owl was saying, see what happens when you decide to honor your own desire? Magic happens. So that was the first kind of message I got. Wow, if I stayed inside, this never would have happened. I never would have had this incredibly magical experience with this amazing, wise creature. And then the second thing that I felt in communion, I want to say, with that owl was that I felt welcome in its presence. Like I said, it didn't flinch. It was almost as if the owl was initiating me or confirming some kind of initiation into the dark. We know that owls are incredibly symbolic creatures and across many cultures over time have been aligned with ideas of wisdom. And so this wise owl that I came into contact with, it was almost as if the owl was acknowledging that I am actually at home in the dark on the land, that we are both as welcome there as it is. And that's its natural habitat. My natural habitat is inside in the dry, sheltered house with lights on. But also my natural habitat is the daytime. I'm not a nocturnal creature. I'm not a morning person, but I'm definitely not nocturnal. And it was almost like this owl, this creature, was confirming that I am just as at home in the dark on the land as it is, that we're both just as welcome to hold that space. And that was really profound because that meant that this journey of initiation into the physical reality of darkness, I've done it symbolically a lot over my lifetime, reckoning with my fear of, the fears I hold in my shadows. But this physical integration of that literal shadow work to then come face to face with the owl who was permitting me to stand next to it and be at home was just amazing. So this particular message from the 3D was telling me take action, honor your human earthly desires, stand in your power, connect with the natural earth, understand you're at home on the land, in the earth. It was quite shamanic, I want to say. I really did feel like I was connected in spirit with that owl being so close to it. And that experience was so thrilling. It's unmatched by any facsimile, I want to say, that's provided to us by the media. There's nothing more thrilling to me than something incredible happening in nature. It can't be compared with anything in the thought realm. Maybe the most beautiful, amazing journey in meditation could come close, especially when it gives us this vibrational experience, this amazing vibrational experience. That's the closest thing. But for me, one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, and if this is a common experience to you, you see owls all the time, how cool. I might sound like a big dog to you, but to me, it was amazing. So unmatched by anything media can offer us. The lesson was also unmatched by any book that I could have read, any pages in a book that I could have consumed at the same time, because I felt that experience in my body. It wasn't solely intellectual. And so that was the first kind of animal medicine I received this week, which was amazing. And in the plant realm has offered some really amazing healing to me this week. It has held me. It has understood how tired I felt. And my beautiful mate in the physical realm, my human mate, has also seen and felt me in this physical reality and has been supporting me in the physical with how tired I've been, which has been really wonderful. And he's been offering some really good suggestions about getting outside and connecting with nature, which is not something I always prioritize. So one morning when I was really affected, I took him up on this. I went outside and allowed the sun to hold me. I wanted to receive as much sun as I could to kind of replenish my vitality. And it was a morning where the ground was very dewy, and that would usually make me want to wear shoes. I'm not someone who likes walking around with bare feet. I don't feel really comfortable in that state. So it's always intentional for me when I place my bare feet on the ground. But this morning, even though the ground was wet, I took my shoes off and walked around my backyard on the grass in my bare feet. And what I felt was amazing, because it's something, again, that I would normally not allow myself to feel because of some level of discomfort, short-term discomfort. So this time I wouldn't have wanted to have kind of slimy, wet feet after having a shower, but I didn't consider it on this morning. I just knew I had to kick off my shoes and walk around on the grass. And the feeling, the sensation that I'd missed was that at this time of morning, when the ground was still dewy, all of the grass was so soft. It was so soft. Normally it feels crunchy and scratchy because it can be pretty dry here this time of year. And for some reason, it was like every blade of grass had been conditioned to be so soft, and it was so beautiful to walk around. And I walked around for a long time, just allowing each footstep to connect with the ground below. And as I did that, I wandered around to visit plants in my garden, and I've been trying really hard to listen to the plants in my garden. I used to love gardening. I used to be such a good gardener. And when I came to the farm, I became so overwhelmed by the power of nature and how it's almost impossible to control the force of nature. The only way to work with it is to literally work with it. It's one of the most incredible lessons I've received from this farm, that it's futile to try to control nature. Nature has its own spirit and its own will, and you'll never stop weeds from growing. The only way to do that is to poison the land. So you have to work with the weeds. And what even are weeds? That's just a projection, a thought projection. I've learned so much about even just the purpose of weeds in the earth that has been really amazing. But to get back to my story of grounding, of beautiful grounding this week, I wandered around and connected with my plants, and it's been important for me to touch them like I'm holding their hands. I hold their leaves like I'm holding their hands. And sometimes I hear a message from them. And if you haven't heard messages from plants before, other people might have much better communication channels with plants, but generally the way I perceive their messages is, say you've got a house plant and you're walking past it and you might have a thought to, oh, I really need to give that plant some water. That's actually you having communication with the plant. The plant's sensing your presence as you walk past, witnessing you and letting you know that it's thirsty. And so it's not just your thoughts. This is a communication. They can't speak, but they can. And I stood in front of this beautiful mother rosemary plant in my garden. She's just an incredible, abundant bush of rosemary. And she said to me, take my oil. And it wasn't in those words. What I received I have more of a claircognizance, I guess, psychic sense. So I just understood that there was an invitation there to feel her oil. And this is something I'll often do. I'll often just caress the rosemary so that the oil comes off onto my hands and I can smell the oil. But this particular morning, it was different. The rosemary was asking me to anoint myself with the oil and that it would be very invigorating for me. And it's actually a medicine that I needed in order to restore some of my lost vitality. And so I did. I took the oil of the rosemary. I brushed my hands against her leaves, and this herbal oil, I rubbed my oily hands on my third eye and my crown chakra and my hair, and I took in the aroma as I was doing this. And it felt beautiful. I felt connected with this beautiful plant. And I spent some time there, and then I continued walking to this poor elderflower tree. My sister gave it to me a few years back when I had a really green thumb and I was working really well with the plants in my garden. And this plant that was never able to grow in her garden thrived in mine. And I really do feel like it was because it had friends who were giving it life as well, plant friends. So we've never really found where to put it. And I have treated this plant with neglect. I'm not the best at watering my plants. And so this plant has been struggling for a really long time. And my partner's helping me look after this plant in particular, and it's had some new life spring into it recently and has been giving us flowers. So I just wandered over to this lovely struggling elderflower tree and caressed its leaves. And I did that for a while, and I noticed the beautiful dewdrops on its leaves. And as I wandered away, I opened my hand and I saw two tiny, tiny elderflowers, I guess. They weren't quite petals because they were formed with multiple petals, but the elderflower itself is this kind of star shape that can detach from the stem, almost like it's been hole punched in the shape of this star with a circle in the middle. So I see these amazing, beautiful little flower gifts from this elderflower plant, and I felt so loved. I was given a gift. Like, how special is that? And again, if I just did my normal, really crappy routine that I have at the moment, which has nothing to do with nature in the morning apart from feeding the chickens and feeding the cat, I wouldn't have been given this gift. So basically, through the story with the owl and with the plants, they are speaking words to us too. And I had been neglecting the communication with this natural realm in favor of the thoughts and ideas from other humans coming into my mental field, prioritizing those interactions above interactions with other living beings in my natural world. And that was such a beautiful experience that reminded me deeply of the power of flower essences and flower remedies. And so that compelled me to work with flower medicine intently again, and to build a new morning ritual around flower medicine. And so I created a new flower blend that's specifically targeting my fatigue and exhaustion and my lack of vitality, my lack of inspiration, my confusion and lack of focus. There's a lot going on there, but I sat down and made a new remedy for myself, and that felt really good. And the effect of that medicine, that beautiful grounding walk I went on, drinking the solar water. So the first thing I did when I came outside that morning, I did these stretches for my neck because I'm seeing a chiropractor at the moment, and that was really a cool way to do it, to have the sun charging my head as I sat on a chair and did my neck exercises while I waited for my water to charge. So this is another beautiful medicine that's helping with vitality at the moment. I know a lot of you people are into this, but I'll just give you a quick reminder that if you place your water in a clear glass out in the sun to charge that is going to be filled with life source energy. And on this particular morning, I'd usually put it on the table so it was as high up and close to the sun as it could possibly be. But on this day, I decided to keep it on the ground. And I realized that was an even more amazing, beautiful medicine that I was creating, because in addition to this solar charge, it was getting a telluric charge from the ground. So I'm having this grounded solar charged water, and I'm doing these neck exercises, opening up my spine and my energy channels, clearing out those blockages in there. And it was just so healing. And I really thought, like, why do I prioritize other stuff thinking? Why do I prioritize thinking over just being in this world that I inhabit? It's a beautiful world, and so much of the thoughts we consume are telling us that it's not actually that way, that it's some prison planet that we are here to escape. And on some levels that might be true, but the more we prescribe to those kinds of narratives, and the more that we prioritize consuming those types of narratives, that we live in a matrix and that the only reason we're here is to ascend this place, the more we consume those narratives, the more we deprive ourselves of the reality of the earth that we inhabit, which is beautiful and healing and connected. We disconnect ourselves from this natural earth the more we prioritize intellectualizing our reality here in this natural earth. And this has been such a profound lesson for me this week, because it's made me question everything I'm consuming and whether I even believe in it, which is pretty big given that I have a spiritual podcast and that I explore New Age concepts. And I feel like perhaps I'm at this stage of my journey now where I've opened my mind to so many things that it's time now to start grounding into the 3D, grounding into physical reality, and allowing my discernment to chart a course for me through these narratives going forward, how I wish to prioritize the thoughts that I'm going to be taking into my realm. What kind of thoughts and ideas and concepts do I want to kind of cleanse from this, my thought realm, to make space for witnessing, I want to say, and creating. I have Bread snoring next to me, so that might be some animal medicine coming at you through the airwaves. You might have noticed from the title, this was part 1 of grounding into the 3D. And I touched a few times on my recent questioning of some of the narratives, spiritual narratives that I have been eagerly consuming over the past number of years, 10 years or so. And I'd planned and hoped to be able to cover that in this episode, but I feel like it deserves its own space, separate to this beautiful messaging that's very clear around nature calling us to connect with her by receiving messages coming straight from the spirit of animals and plants, and even our own bodies, to be prioritizing living in the present and witnessing our physical, actual material reality, and witnessing the beauty and the marvel and the awe that exists within this space. Those feelings are real, and they can be elicited through so many experiences in the 3D. And my growing distrust of some of the pervasive ascension narratives has spurred me, one, on my own journey of questioning my own beliefs, but also questioning where these narratives come from And this is what I have been researching in recent times, trying to understand the source, because so much of what we receive is planted for us for reasons that aren't necessarily aligned with our highest purpose. So that is what I'm going to touch on next week in part 2 of this episode. Our eagerness to escape the 3D, and is this in alignment with our soul contracts? So I hope you stay with me for that episode and have some time to ask yourself some questions about your consumption and your beliefs and how much time you're spending consuming the thoughts and ideas of others, including the thoughts I'm sharing right now. If you'd like to chat about this topic, the Initiates community has a little channel that's growing slowly but steadily of beautiful souls who really value connection. It's a supportive space where we can ask some big questions and share our thoughts. So if you'd like to join us and have some of these spiritual deep dives in real time, you can find us at the Initiates chat on Telegram. Check the show notes if you'd like the link. I also mentioned flower essences in this episode, and if you weren't aware, I am a flower essence practitioner. My focus area is batch flower essences, which is a beautiful system of 38 vibrational medicines that come from the incredibly high energy of flowers. So if this sounds intriguing to you, check out my website, flowerguide.com.au. Again, the link is in the show notes. You can purchase blends that I've created there for all manner of states of mind and emotion. If you'd like a personalized blend, this is something that I offer via my flower therapy sessions. So if you'd like to consult with me about where you're at and you want to start working with flower medicine, beautiful, gentle, subtle energy medicine that can support you in creating some really profound change in your life, then get in touch, send me a DM, email me, or go visit flowerguide.com.au and follow the links to book a consultation with me. Thank you so much for journeying through the 3D with me this week. I hope that you prioritize some time to ground into the 3D vibration, to descend perhaps into the earth and her beautiful embrace. And I look forward to you joining me next week. Peace and love, beautiful souls.